Welcome to the all-new Kingdom Mandate Podcast. We address biblical principles that promote the kingdom of God and how they apply to our everyday lives at home, at work, and in the community. You're about to join our hosts, Pastor Reggie Davis and Derrick Turner, for an uplifting time of teaching, conversation, and empowerment. Thank you for tuning in. Join us weekly and invite a friend. Be blessed and welcome.
To all of our viewers and subscribers, welcome. I'm Pastor Derrick Turner.
And I'm Pastor Reggie Davis.
We're back on the Kingdom Mandate Podcast, and we're talking Kingdom Health Matters. This is our second installment, and we're pretty excited about this one, Pastor Reggie. We got Dr. Davis coming back to join us.
Yes, we do. This is part two, and Dr. Davis, he's going to talk with us and kind of pick up where we left off last time. I know we got a lot of tweets asking about grilling, versus smoked meats, and so that was a pretty heavy hitter. It was
right.
So, put some fear in some people about what they're gonna do now.
I ain't gonna lie, it hurt my feelings a little bit because I have a grill full of charcoal right now.
Right.
That is just asking to be lit.
There you go. Put the fire on it, right? Here's the thing, though. We don't. A lot of things, if we just don't know, we just don't know. And then when someone brings it to your attention after you've been doing it for years, it's like, man, come on now. But he's going to bring some insight to this as well, because it's not an end all. I don't believe, but definitely information we need to know, right?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I want to address, we're going to address in this first here segment before we go to our guest. Mm-hmm. A lot of people ask, well, what does these health matters in particular, coming on, you're talking with a GI doctor, what does this have to do with the kingdom?
Right. Well,
we're Kingdom Mandate Ministries. And so what does this have to do with the kingdom?
Right. Well, it really has a lot to do with the kingdom. Part of the mission, Yeshua sent the disciples out, and he sends us out as disciples as well. Our health plays a very vital role in our ability to witness this message of the kingdom. You have to be in health, and you have to be in great shape, because if we are to be an example to others, then that's not only an example as far as the spiritual side, but example in the natural realm. How are we living? How are we looking? How are we keeping ourselves? So it's very important, because if you're unhealthy, and you're trying to promote this message, what is that saying? What is that saying about the God we serve?
So let's go to the Bible. Let's talk about 1 Corinthians chapter 6.
Okay.
And there's, at that last part of chapter 6, verses 12 to 20, a lot of instruction there where it comes to honoring the Most High with our bodies.
There we go.
And in particular, Apostle Paul opens up talking about what is lawful but not expedient.
Right. Right.
Body being made for food being made for the body. There are certain things that I can do. The body is designed to do. I can take a crayon and put it in my mouth and chew it up and swallow it.
Yes, you can.
And nothing in my body will stop me from doing that.
Absolutely not.
And my body will process said crayon.
Absolutely.
But the Bible says that doesn't make it a good idea.
Doesn't make it a good idea, right?
And so we can eat certain kinds of food.
Right.
And again, we're talking about, we highlighted in the last episode, we talked about, the quality of food in these food desert locations. Right. And we talked about just making the efforts that we can, doing the best that we can with what's available to us to be mindful of the quality of what we're putting in our bodies.
Right. Sure.
And so the body, so it gives that talk in chapter 12. And then if we jump all the way down, it mentions in verse 18, and we don't want to harbor too long because, the Christian church likes to, we talk about the big three things, right? We talk about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And probably in 2021, we're replacing rock and roll with hip hop. We are sex, drugs, and hip hop. We're making sure you say, you're not doing those three things. You on the fast track to heaven, pretty much. That, give or take a few things, but and it talks about sinning outside of the body versus sinning against your own body.
Sure.
And so there are some things that we know we shouldn't do. So we're not going to even bring a lot of attention to that. First three words in verse 18 said, flee sexual immorality. You let that hit you where it hits you.
Sure. Yeah.
You let that hit you where it hits you.
Yeah, I think people know. Yeah.
People know. I'm not going to waste I don't want to say waste. We're not going to use a whole lot of our time on this podcast.
Right.
Talking there, the things that because the truth of the matter is, as Kingdom Mandate Ministries, and we're pushing the message of the gospel of the kingdom, and that is seek ye first the kingdom of God and its righteousness.
Sure.
Then these first three words, if you're offended by that, go back and check out Matthew chapter 6.
That's
drop a comment below and we'll talk those things out. We don't mind the healthy conversation.
Absolutely.
But the bigger thing is at verse 20. It says that you were bought for you were bought with at a price. Therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which belong to God.
Right. That I think verse 20 says it all. Our bodies belong to the Father because he paid the price, through Yeshua. So, and not that we owe anything to God. We can't owe him, because he is God. He is sovereign. But we can do our very best while we're here on earth to eat as healthy as we can. To, like you say, just because your body will, you'll chew the crayon, you'll swallow, your body will process it just like anything else. That doesn't mean it's good for you. So it's a matter of choices, right? Just let's make healthy choices, and then let's get away from, if I know that a particular food is bad for me, right? I can't thank God for that bad food that I know is bad for me, and he's gonna make it good for my body.
So right? I can't say grace over a salt-filled dish that is going to add to the high blood pressure I already have.
Right. You can't do that. Like where can you do that? You can't do that. You can't do that.
Quick, well, that sounds like a great place to take a commercial break right here.
Absolutely.
Reggie, we're doing commercial breaks in our show now. What's up with that?
We are.
I mean, we've got subscribers. We've got our viewership is increasing.
Yeah.
The Lord is increasing Kingdom Mandate Ministries. Our donors are on the uptick. And so I want to take a minute and just give you all a quick message about how to donate to Kingdom Mandate Ministries, because many of you all have sent us messages asking about, how do I donate? How do I get involved? And so we want to take you to a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we're coming back with our special guest, Dr. Eric Davis. I'm Pastor Derrick Turner.
And I'm Pastor Reggie Davis.
We'll be right back on the Kingdom Mandate Podcast.
Kingdom Mandate Ministries needs your involvement to aid in our mission to better serve our community. We have a number of support initiatives, and your donations help us further our mission to provide resources for disabled and retired veterans, life skills coaching, and to raise mental illness awareness. Your tax-deductible gift to Kingdom Mandate Ministries can be made by visiting our website at www.kingdommandateministries.com and clicking Donate. There you will be able to choose your level of support and the initiative you'd like to sponsor. We would like to thank our many partners for your generous support.
We're back on the Kingdom Mandate Podcast. I'm your host, Pastor Derrick Turner.
And I'm your host, Pastor Reggie Davis.
All right. Well, Reggie, listen, we're back with our special guest.
Yes,
he's been here before, and we had a great time. And he
stirred up a little bit, didn't he?
And he's back by popular demand after he hurt my feelings about being able to grill food. but we brought him back anyway.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Thank you. Dr. Eric Davis, thank you for joining us again, brother. We definitely need this information, man. You dropped a load on us last time. We got a lot of feedback, positive feedback, actually.
Yes.
Good.
So I definitely want to start it off with, if we could pick up on, if you will, we talked about grilling, smoked foods versus, the steaks and the lamb chops. Yeah. So if you could, pick back up on that a little bit, and then we'll dive into some more
good stuff.
Yeah.
So basically, I think we were talking about the risk of carcinogens or cancer-producing agents in food that is charred, meaning that it's well done, it's on the grill. There is some studies, right, that can suggest that there are what we call amines, which are just these possible cancer-causing agents if we eat too much of them. But to go back on that, I just want to make sure people understand. I'm not saying don't get on that grill. I'm not saying
right.
Fry that bird, but
right.
take everything in moderation. And again, these studies are, they're not randomized controlled trials, not the best of the best studies. These are observational trials, meaning that they observe some things and they kind of put that in the study to offer some insight as to what may be going on. But for the most part, I say, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but heart healthy diet, fruit, vegetables, and grains are the best thing we can do. More of those and less of the other things, like we'll talk about later, are ideal.
Okay. All right. Makes sense. So, everything in moderation. Just be mindful. Just be mindful of what we're doing, basically.
Exactly right.
Okay.
We'll go into some things that we need to talk about, though, as far as colon, health. And we'll go into that whenever. Okay.
Well, since you brought that up, for those who are watching and listening to this, we're talking about colon health, right? And everyone talks about, at a certain age, you should have a colonoscopy done, right? Okay. But for those who don't know, what is a colonoscopy?
So a colonoscopy is a test that individuals have performed on them to look for colon polyps and or colon cancer. So just to take a step back, colon cancer is the third most common cancer in men and women, right? Wow. And the second most common cancer causing death or mortality as of within 2021 in men and women, right behind lung cancer. So the goal is to go in and test to see if you have colon cancer, meaning are there cancers in the colon, polyps in the colon, things that we look for when we do the colonoscopy, and that's called a screening test. Now, there are several tests that you can do because most people, will say, I don't want a colonoscopy, right? I've heard some things about it, I just don't want it. But there are other ways in which we can screen for colon cancer. So let's talk about that for a second. So most people say, colonoscopy, I don't know about that. And we'll talk about what that means exactly, but there are other ways to screen for colon cancer, right? So polyps start in the colon. These are just abnormal growths that can occur. And over time, they can progress into cancers, right? So that's one way in which colon cancers develop, right? And so the way we screen and test for that, first way, are non-invasive ways, meaning you can do what's called a FIT test or a stool-based test. These tests look for blood in the stool, microscopic blood that's in the stool. And they're simple, they're non-invasive, meaning that all you're doing is taking a stool sample, sending that off. They analyze it to see if there's blood or hemoglobin in the stool, and or specialized tests like you may have heard on TV called Cologuard, right? You might have seen that. And those Cologuard tests essentially will look at the DNA and some other things that will tell you if you have, in fact, a colon cancer or an advanced polyp in the colon. And there are also blood tests that you can do, but the blood tests are really not very sensitive to detecting these tests, and therefore definitely not really recommended. But you can also do like a CT scan, right? So there's a CT colonography, right? In which you just do it like a regular CT scan, but it specifically looks at the colon to identify if there are polyps there, right? Or there's a colon capsule that you can do, meaning that you actually swallow a capsule and it tumbles all the way through, and then it detects anything in the colon to see. Now you may say to yourself, well, what happens if there's a positive test, right? That means that you're then going to have the colonoscopy, right? You can also have what's called a half colonoscopy or a flexible sigmoidoscopy is what we call it, meaning that you don't have to take the full prep. You just take enough prep for us to look at the left side of the colon, and it's a half of a scope going in. But if any of these tests are positive, right, then it warrants you definitely getting a colonoscopy.
Gotcha.
And so then most people say, well, I might as well just go for the colonoscopy, right?
Right.
And that makes sense, right? But some people have fears of colonoscopies. And I'll talk a little bit about that too. A colonoscopy takes a flexible scope with a light and camera on the end. The hardest part of this entire process with the colonoscopy is getting prepared for it, meaning you have to drink a solution, or now we have pills that you can take with a lot of water that will cleanse the colon, right? And once the colon is nice and clean, then a person like myself, a gastroenterologist or surgeons sometimes, can go into the rectum while you're asleep.
Okay.
Choose not to be asleep. I would recommend that. It's much more comfortable to be asleep.
Okay.
And we explore the entire length of the colon, all the way to the small intestine, and we look for these growths. I distend the colon with air, sometimes water, and I slowly pull my scope back out looking for these growths. These growths can be big, and we can obviously see those, or sometimes they can be very small and flat. That's why we take our time coming back out. Now, once we come out, we tell patients to pass a lot of gas. And when they wake up, most times they are happy. They don't know that you've done an exam on them. They feel a little bloated and distended. That's why we tell them to pass the gas. But other than that, I mean, that's it. Now, let's say I find a polyp, right? I characterize the polyp based on the size, where it is in the colon. Are there other things in the colon that I want to be aware of? Meaning, is there what we call diverticular disease? This is just a benign condition when you have pockets in the colon. And over time, as we get older, sometimes we are more prone to develop these pockets. But essentially, these procedures take about 10 minutes if there's no polyps. That's it. A little longer if you're not as clean and have to wash and clean. A little longer if I have to take polyps out, obviously. But essentially, that's it. Now, a lot of people say, well, what are the risks involved with this? I mean, I'm putting myself to sleep, sure. Most people say, well, can I bleed with this? Yes, if you have other conditions or taking medications that thin your blood, like Coumadin, there is a chance that you can bleed. And about every 8 out of 10,000 times I do this, you can bleed, right? On an average person. There's a risk you can tear the colon, right? If you're one of these individuals that have a twisty, loopy colon, sometimes you can develop a tear, but that's about 4 out of every 10,000 times I do it. But we're watching where we're going with our scope. So we try not to make any sudden moves, hard twists and turns. And most times we don't see that, right? But it can happen. So people should be aware of that. But my recommendation would be do something, right? Especially in the African-American community. African-American males, they're 25% chance higher of getting colon cancer, almost 50% higher chance of dying from colon cancer compared to the white population. So, and so it's important to get screened some way, whether it's the stool test, the CT test, the colonoscopy, which I would hope most folks would use. But it's important to at least get the test.
So now, what age are you recommending that the test should be done? Because I know, I think at one point it was 40, maybe 45, but now I think, but what age are we looking at now?
So there are new guidelines that have just come out in our GI societies, and we are now recommending for average risk individuals, they should actually start at age 45. Right. So if you don't have when we say average risk, we mean you don't have any symptoms like bleeding in the rectum, weight loss, things of that nature, or a family member, that first degree family member, mother, brother, sister, daughter, son has a colon cancer or an advanced polyp, then you would be an average risk and you should start at 45. Now, individuals that may have a family history of colon cancer or an advanced polyp, these individuals actually should start at age 40 or 10 years younger than the youngest person who has that disorder, right? In the family.
I get it.
Yeah. So now, really, believe it or not, we probably, in my opinion, because I've seen cancers in individuals much younger than that, colon cancers, any sign of a bleed in the rectum, any changes, you should really be asking your physician to see if you're a candidate for testing for colon cancer.
Right.
Bleeding is the number one thing that I think most people, I wouldn't say number one thing, but it is one of the things that a lot of individuals take for granted. They wipe, they see blood, maybe it's a hemorrhoid, right? A strain on the toilet, maybe it's constipation.
Yeah.
But it's important to have that evaluated, right? And so sometimes, we see bleeding, let's always make sure we investigate it further.
Okay, right. So
how frequently, I apologize, Reggie.
Go ahead.
How frequently should a person begin, at the age 45 when they start having screenings, how frequently should they have them thereafter?
It just depends, right? So if I don't see any polyps, let's say you're 45, I do a colonoscopy, I don't see any polyps, everything else looks magnificent, then I'll tell you come back in 10 years, right? Now, let's say I see a polyp, then I'll determine how big the polyp is. I'll take the polyp out first, right? But I'll determine how big it is. I'll determine the type of polyp it is, and then I'll give you a time frame as to when I'll bring you back. Sometimes it means 5 to 7 years if I see a polyp. Sometimes if they're big polyps, I may bring you back in 3 years. And sometimes if you just have a lot of polyps in the colon, I may just say I need to see you back in 1 year. But most folks who don't have any polyps in their colon, the recommendations from our guidelines, most recent guidelines is, they can come back in 10 years.
10 years. Okay. So when you identify the polyps, you can then, during the procedure, remove them at that time, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And patients most times don't feel or remember any parts of that exam. Correct.
Okay.
Now, when you talk about people having a general fear of colon screenings, colon cleansings, anything having to do with that kind of procedure, do you find that the fear, in your experience, you find that fear is more about the procedure, the actual procedure itself, or about the potential results?
Wow, that's great. I think both. Because, most patients that I see, when I first meet them, right? And we may not have had the chance to talk because we see a lot of patients just through open access, meaning that I looked at your chart, I've looked at you from a perspective, just looking at your chart, but I've not actually seen you in clinic. And then I see you for the first time your colonoscopy, right? And so they're nervous. They don't know what to expect a lot of times. Even though we've explained it to them, they really want to see my face and they really want to know and be assured that everything is going to be okay. So yes, I think there's a fear of the unknown, meaning, is this going to hurt, right? Is this going to cause me to have a complication? Am I going to be in a lot of pain, during the procedure or even after the procedure? And you kind of make sure you discuss and go over all the details like we discussed earlier with that. But also your second point, yes, a lot of people are concerned about what I may find, right? Especially if there's symptoms, meaning if they've been telling me they've lost weight, for instance, or they tell me they've been bleeding, then a lot of them already think the worst. Right. And but the good point about that, I'm glad you brought that up. The good thing about it is they took the step to come in, right? And I will tell you, when we find cancers, they will deal with the initial scare of, yes, I have a cancer, but the most important thing for me is to convey a sense of calmness and to be straightforward with them and to also tell them what the follow-up plan will be, meaning I'm going to send you to an oncologist, or we're going to go to surgery, or this is what this will entail. Here's going to be when I come back to see you after everything has been done. And so once they feel that you are confident in what you're doing, that you actually care about them and what they may be experiencing, and also that you can sense their fear and also calm that fear, a lot more folks feel a lot better about coming back to do it again. Right.
That's good to know. Yeah, because there's a lot of uncertainty, because it's you don't know, and there is a fear, like you say. So I guess conquering that. And then I think there's a degree of people being ashamed too. It's a bit of embarrassment, right? Because
particularly for men.
Absolutely.
Particularly for men. I mean, let's just be real.
It is. Men don't. You can't be messing around back there, right? You don't want that. But these are life-saving procedures. And
Right.
when you tell them that, they prefer
They
you
quickly,
take
yeah.
a look. And it's funny. I mean, I it's so funny. I joke around with folks every day about it because I do it every day, right?
Right.
And some folks are extremely nervous.
Yeah.
Some folks will tell you, "Hey, man, come on, let's do it. I'm ready.
Let's get it out the way.
And
Right.
then
Right.
start getting closer to that time,
Right.
they get a little nervous, right? And that's
Okay.
understandable.
Okay.
But I think it's important, especially for African American men, because we are the ones that probably, we don't do as well for a lot of reasons, and we call those disparities, meaning that we don't have the access, or individuals may not have the good follow-up, or they may not understand the follow-up. So there are a lot of reasons for that, but I just think we should definitely try our best to get over the fear of testing and do something, right? And again, like I said, some people will not do a colonoscopy, and that's okay. But do the stool test, right? That's something you can perform at home, and then we can talk. So, because most times there are studies that show that if you do the what we call the FIT or the stool test plus the colonoscopy, that sometimes can be life-saving as well. So do something, right?
Okay, you got to do something, right? Got to do something. Okay, let me ask you this. Going back to prep, right? Preparing for this. You said that they will either you give them a solution to drink or a pill.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Now that's done. Now, what all is entailed with that? Because I know you can't. There's certain things you can't eat. I'm sure you can't drink prior to surgery. There's another situation going to happen, right?
Right. So that is an extremely important concept. So prepping is probably the most important thing that you can do. And a lot of people may not understand what that entails, right? So most people say, all right, I have a bowel movement, then I'm clean. No. You have to drink a lot of fluid, sometimes it's water, to get cleaned out. Now, what that entails is the night before the exam, we ask you to drink a solution if you do that prep, right? There are different types of preps. Let's just say a basic prep means you will drink it at one point. Let's just call it, 4 p.m. the night before, and then you drink another second prep hours before the procedure, right? 4 hours or so before the procedure. And you want to drink plenty of water, and then you don't want to eat the day before your procedure. That is the one thing that we see a lot of. I had some macaroni and cheese for dinner last night. No, please don't do it, please. Because there is a lot of stool in the colon. Even though you have a bowel movement, there's a lot that you just don't know that's still in there. There's a newer prep that entails taking several pills, and you just follow that with water. And a lot of patients prefer that rather than drinking higher volumes. Right. But people will say, and the one question I'll ask him, how well did you do with the prep? You know what? I threw up most of my prep. That is something that you should tell us beforehand, because if you didn't get it all in, sometimes it may not cleanse the colon like we see. Right. You'd be surprised. And I go into a colon and I see any stool or any thickened area. It makes it really hard to detect polyps, which are very, very tiny. And it makes it even harder to see flat lesions. And you can develop cancers that way as well. So the prep, Reggie, is the most important thing that you can do, because it really gives me a great visualization of the colon when it's clean. When it's dirty, I have to stop. Oh, and the thing about that is, let's say I don't complete the colonoscopy because you're not clean. Sometimes insurance companies may not pay for that second colonoscopy. And it makes it, a lot more trickier to do the second one. So do your due diligence.
Very important.
Follow those instructions that we give you. And if you have any questions, to the T, that's right. If you have any questions, even if it's 2:00 in the morning, you should call the 24-hour hotline.
Wow. I like it.
Now, talk about colon cleansing just as a preventive maintenance, as something that should or shouldn't be done with a certain amount of frequency.
Right.
Let's talk about colon cleansing.
A lot of people like to they like to drink the apple cider vinegar with lemon, and warm water, first thing in the morning. Try to get some things moving. percolating. Well,
yeah, of course. And some people drink coffee in the morning to get them going. Yeah,
with no sugar though, right? If you're gonna drink the coffee, no sugar, no cream, right.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends, right? I mean, there are people who are diabetic, then their caloric intake and their sugar intake will definitely be different from someone who doesn't have diabetes. Let's just say. Okay. But to the point about colon cleansing, I think it's not so much about. I wouldn't say colon cleansing. I would say colon health, meaning some people think they should go every day, right? They think every morning, if I don't go, something's wrong. And then they will do X-Lax, they will do laxatives, they will do Senna, aloe vera, all these things that may not be the best thing for your colon. Some even will do, these enemas, so, and I just think you really need to be evaluated by someone that can help you with it. Let's just say you're constipated. You go once a week, right? I would consider that constipated, where you have hard, lumpy stools. That's something that should be evaluated by a physician to kind of help you figure out what may be going on, right? Wow. And if you're constipated, there are a lot of medicines that we can give you. Now, you say, well, I'm just not as regular as I want to. I don't want to go to a doctor. I just want to do some things that would help me move my colon. Fiber is really, really good, right? Whether you get it through beans, your diet, fruit and vegetables, whole grains, or if you get it from supplements, meaning they have these gummy fibers that taste really well that you can do, or fiber chews. I would just recommend a really good diet to move you. If you want to do a juice, if you want to do this apple cider vinegar, if you want to do all these other things, that's up to you, right? And the FDA really doesn't try to look at those type of things and offer any insight. So I can't, as a professional, tell you, yes, you should, no, you shouldn't. But more water is obviously a good thing, and more fiber in the diet usually helps to have a nice, healthy colon.
Sure. Well, since you mentioned fiber, then how many grams of fiber should we be consuming a day? What's recommended? Because from what I've read, and tried to consume, it's like 25 to 30 grams or something. But that's, that's a challenge to some people.
It is a challenge. And yes, a good, healthy balance of fiber is good. And I will tell you, everybody can't get 25 grams of fiber in a day, right? But if you are having constipation, you may require more, right? And so I would say I would just keep eating those heart-healthy vegetables, just vegetables, fruit, and then supplement. I mean, fiber is something that if you get enough in your diet, beans probably have one of the most highest concentration, fruit, vegetables. I think that would suffice for your.
Okay. Now, how about, I hear about this all the time. We hear about this all the time. We hear about red meat, undigested red meat in the colon.
Right.
How do you go about, are there some home remedies where you can help, or is that something that a medical procedure is needed to help a person along the way?
What now exactly?
In terms of red meat, having a certain amount of undigested red meat in your colon, just from years of eating red meat.
No, you're gonna digest it, right? The problem is too much red meat in the diet: beef, pork, lamb, hot dogs. And we talked about this before. Luncheon meats, processed meats. These things should really, really be limited in your diet. We're talking about limiting the risk of colon cancer, and individuals that have more red meat in the diet may be at an increased risk of developing colon cancer. And that's why we say whole grains, fruit, vegetables, more of those in the diet is really the way to go. Now, a lot of people eat red meat, right? And I eat it, right? I had some lamb tonight, right? But I try my best. And of course, you want to limit how much of that you eat.
Sure.
You really want to dump a lot of fruit and vegetables in the colon. I mean, that's just good, healthy diet choices. But if you're eating red meat every night, I can tell you that's not good.
Okay. I like it. I like good information. Good information.
Nice.
So when we're talking about that risk, so now we're talking about diet and meats and things of that nature. There are a lot of things that we can do to kind of help us with colon cancer prevention, right? Making ourselves more healthy with colon. The biggest thing we can do, right, is to get tested, to get screened, right? So it's the stool test, or it's the colonoscopy, which we obviously prefer, or it's a CT colonography, or you want to go in and do a flex-sig, whatever you want to do, flex-sig moldoscopy. You want to do that. That will help you to know where you are. Number two, we talked about diet, but it is more fruit, vegetables. Just to reiterate, more fruit, more vegetables, more whole grains in the diet would help you tremendously, and cutting back on some of the red meats. Number three, you really have to control your weight, right? Obesity is something that, if you can get more exercise on a consistent basis, that helps you out as well. These are risk factors that we're trying to eliminate, that we can modifiable risk factors. Alcohol. Let's talk about that, right? Individuals, and there are certain amounts that people say, a 12-ounce beer, if you're drinking 2 of those a day, if you're taking 2 shots or so a day of hard, 80 proof alcohol, or 2 glasses of wine or so for men, and women may be a little bit different, but if you're doing that every day, that's probably a bad idea. So they really, societies really want you to limit your impact of alcohol if you can. And then the other thing is smoking, right? Smoking can also impact the colon. So long-term smokers are at increased risk of developing colon cancer versus those who've never smoked. So those are also things that you can modify. If you have a family history, you can't modify that, right? So those are individuals that really want to be screened on a more consistent basis, or come in early, obviously, if there is a significant risk there. These are things that most people, they look at and they say, yeah, my mom had something, or my sister had something. You want to explore that, talk more about what they had, and then come in.
Dr. Davis,
y'all still looking good. Y'all still looking good. I mean, I'm loving this. I'm loving this.
We trying to do it, man. We're trying to bring awareness. I will say this, man. A lot of people have watched the video, the first video, and they've given us so much feedback, man. They needed this information. It's got them, starting conversations that they wouldn't ordinarily have. Right.
That's what's all about.
Yeah, talking about things now. So this is they wanted you back on, and they wanted to talk more about it. So we want to keep this going. Because people need to hear.
I love this. I love it.
It's good.
Our viewers
kudos to you guys. Kudos to you guys. I mean, you guys are doing a marvelous job. I mean, exposure, allowing our community to see and know some things that everybody else seems to know, but we may not, be familiar with. That's critical. If we can get more folks to be aware of the risk of colon cancers, right? Smoking, alcohol, weight gain, diet. These are all things that most people know, right? That's common sense.
Right.
But if I tell you, I saw a 29-year-old male the other day who came in to me and said, I've had a little bleeding. My mom thought I should come in. It's been going on for 6 months. And I look into his colon, and he's got a mass that size sitting in there in the rectum. These are things that are real. And I caution people to, not procrastinate and come on in with any signs or symptoms that things may not be right. A quick exam can tell a lot and can give you some ease of mind as well. So, man, what you guys are doing, spreading it out, getting the word to people, I love it. And you guys are strong. I like that.
Thank you much.
We appreciate your time, Dr. Davis, as always.
Anytime.
Absolutely.
Anytime for you guys.
Yes, absolutely.
And
we look forward to many more conversations
we're gonna do it
colon health. Absolutely.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Hey, this is the Kingdom Mandate Podcast. I'm Pastor Derrick Turner.
I'm Pastor Reggie Davis.
We're here with our special guest, Dr. Eric Davis. Thank you again.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
You all be safe out there.
All right.
Great night.
question very well about the fiber intake. So the what most folks say is at least 25 grams. Men probably need more, like 40 grams. Okay. So you want to at least get that from diet and not necessarily supplements, right? So if you're constipated, you can do supplements will help you out. But 25 grams is the minimum, I would say. 40 would be probably what most men need.
Thank you for tuning in to the Kingdom Mandate Podcast. Join us again next week as we continue to seek His kingdom. To support Kingdom Mandate Ministries, visit our website at kingdommandateministries.com and click donate. Your generosity is greatly appreciated. Until next week, we pray that you prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. God bless.